Welcome to Game Changers. I'm Noam Wisemann, and today we have with us Adam Neuman, who is the Chief of Staff to the Commissioner of the Big Ten. What's up, Adam?
What's up, Nom? It's great to see you. I am in your hometown of Baltimore, my hometown too. This is where I am, I guess, hibernating until we find out a little bit more about COVID. So,
Before you get to your fancy schmancy Big Ten stuff, let's be straight here. Why is it called the Big Ten when there are more than 10 teams?
Nom, it's a little thing we like to call tradition. So there was a time when there were 10 teams involved, and now that we're at, 14, I don't think there's a lot of panache to Big 14. You'd have to tell me. But I feel like if we polled the audience, I don't know where the audience is, or if we did one of those lifelines on Who Wants to Be a Millionaire, I don't think anybody would be into the Big 14. Big 10, there's something nice about 10. It's a nice round number.
No, but in all seriousness, you are the Chief of Staff to the Commissioner. How did you get there? What's your story? How did you, this kid from Baltimore who goes to Yeshiva University, end up as the Chief of Staff to the Commissioner of the Big Ten?
It's a little bit of a wild ride that includes a lot of faith. I think a lot of it starts with family and friends. There's a phrase that PJ Fleck, who's the head coach of the University of Minnesota football team, he says, family, Family, forget about me, I love you. And I grew up in a house that was very much like that. Forget about me, I love you. Putting others first at all times. What's best for the kid? What's best for, the development of the kid? What's best for the athletics of the kid? What's best for the mental health of the kid? And I think that gave me permission to realize that there were a lot more jobs out there than, doctors, lawyers, and accountants and engineers. And there's nothing wrong with any of those jobs. Those are terrific jobs and professions. But for me, I was always encouraged to do, dream a little bit bigger, to keep reaching a little bit higher. There's a phrase we talk about in the Big Ten sometimes called the dream chuckle. Kevin talks about it, Commissioner Warren, a lot. And what it means is that when you tell someone your dream, if they start laughing at you, it means you're probably getting a little bit closer to your dream.
And you decided right away as one of your first initiatives to focus on mental health, right? That to me doesn't jump out and say, oh, Big Ten sports, let's focus on mental health. Why did you focus on mental health? I grew up, Adam, with the son of two mental health professionals, a clinical psychologist and a social worker. I know how important mental health is, but it's not the type of thing that I would say, oh, you know what? The first thing that I'm going to do if I'm the Chief of Staff to the Commissioner, one of the things we're going to work on is mental health. Why did you decide to focus on that?
I think we believe that mental health and continue to believe that mental health is a silent epidemic. When you break your arm, you go get a cast and you go to school and people sign your cast. And it's really fun. It's something like your parents when you're young encourage you, oh, you'll get your cast signed. It's almost like a silver lining. There's no silver lining in mental health. No one's patting you on the back when you go to a therapist. It's very secretive. It's very inhibited. It's something that people are scared to talk about their emotions. And that's a result of a lot of different things. But for us, one of our biggest initiatives was a commitment to see all 350 teams in the Big Ten play, which was a very, very large commitment to see all of those teams. And one of the main reasons of doing that was to go on campus and to meet with all the student athletes and athletes in volleyball and football and synchronized swimming and pistol shooting. We were talking about the other night and rifle shooting at Ohio State. There's some sports that I don't think a lot of people here are familiar with and may never be familiar with, but I assure you there's sports. I assure you there's pump up music, and it's a hell of a lot of fun. And when we would go to a swimming and diving meet and we would speak to the kids on campus, the student athletes, and these are kids age ranges 17 to 23 typically, without a doubt, the number one topic on campus was mental health. How do we get more therapists? How do we get people to identify with us more? Our entire lives, we're athletes. 99% of our athletes do not end up playing professional sports. It's an identity crisis. Imagine your entire life is about playing volleyball, and you're the best at volleyball. But volleyball is not, in America, as you grow older in volleyball, it's not as profitable as, say, some other sports. And therefore, you might have to have a different job. You might not be a volleyball player for the rest of your life. That's a real gut check. And it hurts your confidence. It can hurt your ego. It can hurt a lot of variety of different things. And it can spiral as it comes out with some of the brain chemistry issues of anxiety and depression and PTSD and other effects that happen during life. But when we found out that this was sort of the number one issue on campus, one of the number one issues, it became very clear that mental health and wellness had to be not only a priority, but perhaps the top priority as we sought to create, a conference. And conference sports, as we have spoken about many times, is we don't look at sports as, oh my gosh, just about teamwork and fun. All those things are great, like what you learn on the playing field and discipline and treating others with respect. We look at sports as an entree into shedding light onto major issues of our time. So if we can take sports and we can look at it as this hub to shine light on mental health, on voter registration, on financial literacy, on cancer awareness. If we can do those kind of things, we're doing what we're supposed to be doing with sports. It's not just about like who's winning and losing in the win column. It's not just about television deals. It's not just about, the name that you wear on the front of your jersey. It's really about like creating a way for people to look into a world to serve as sort of like a paragon to what we all can be, and we can shine light on a lot of different values.
So what are some initiatives that you've worked on that you've really initiated to make happen in the world of the Big Ten? What's an example of something?
In early May, we launched the Mental Health and Wellness Cabinet with 31 members of 16 institutions. We have 2 affiliate members with Johns Hopkins University and Notre Dame, and there are 2 representatives minus 1 school on each campus, and they range from mental health therapists to administrators to trainers, and they are solely dedicated, this cabinet, to promoting mental health and wellness on campus. And one of the first initiatives we rolled out was an app called Calm. It's an app that deals with meditation, with sleep stories, which are like bedtime stories for adults. It deals with guided meditations and breathing exercises. And we were able to kick this out to 10,000 plus people in early May, like this. And the letters of support and feeling and love that we've been receiving from student athletes, we kicked it to all of our coaches, we kicked it to our receptionists, we kicked it to the custodians. We wanted to make sure that this was a comprehensive effort at creating a safe, healthy environment. And this was created way before COVID-19. And now it's priority, right? People are away from their teams, they're in quarantine. This is a really tough time for people right now. But mental health didn't just get created in COVID-19. Mental health and wellness has been a major issue and needs to be at the forefront of everything that we're doing. Because without great mental health, I don't think any of us can be where we want to be.
So do you think that, having grown up in the Jewish community, that the Jewish community was responsive to issues of mental health? Do you think the Jewish community can get better at it? Do you think the Jewish community is any different than any other community from what you've seen?
I think that the Jewish community certainly has to improve. I think every community needs to improve on mental health. Unfortunately, like I said, it's just not something that's seen to the naked eye. And we are people of experience. We like to touch things. And if we can't touch it and we can't feel it, we can't understand it, people will say like, I'm depressed. Until you are depressed or you've spoken to someone who describes what a thick darkness looks like with this horrific, basically a hallucination that things will never be different than they are right now. I find that to be when I speak to people that are suffering, that they cannot see different than they see right there. They cannot see an exit. They can't see an exit option. And that's why, unfortunately, we have seen the suicide rates go up on campus. And we see that there are people taking permanent solutions to temporary problems. And I think that's something that all the communities need to realize. And when I say temporary, please don't mistake me. I'm not saying that it's easy to deal with mental health or mental illness. But what I am saying is that if we can teach people to have more self-love, self-respect, if we can get people on the proper medications, if we can get people the right talk therapy or the right friendships or the right communities, we can really do a lot better by people. And if we do that, I think we can make a better community for everybody, including the Jews.
So tell me about the Bandana Project. I've heard about this Bandana Project that you've worked on. Tell me about it. What is that? That to me sounds like the type of thing that you said, hey, let's make sure that there is awareness. Let's make sure that people know that there are people out there who care. What is the Bandana Project?
So I can't take full credit for that at all. I can really just tell you that it existed even before our time, but I can tell you that we're helping spread the awareness. And the Bandana Project started at the University of Wisconsin. And students had sort of had enough with hearing about suicide stories across the country. And they said, hey, what if we held a time period where people could come and meet and they could get educated a little bit on suicide prevention, a little bit on mental health. We could give them pamphlets and brochures to keep in their bags, and they would tie a lime green bandana to their backpack. They'd walk around campus, and just that very sight could help break down stigmas, because people would look around campus and say, hey, that person cares. And if you're in a tough place, I see a green bandana. I can go talk to that person and they'll help me. And it's twofold, because it's not just stigma, it's actually practical. Because if I come to you, Noam, a lot of people don't know how to deal with someone who's suicidal. And by the way, it's a very challenging thing to do. There aren't right answers necessarily, but to be able to raise your hand and say, I want to voluntarily train to be someone who can be a shoulder for someone and guide someone to the counseling center and walk them to the counseling center and be a friend to them and be an ear to listen and a shoulder to cry on and help them towards a path of recovery. I thought that was an incredible thing. When we brought our cabinet together at the football championship game in Indianapolis, a lot of our schools had not heard of the Wisconsin Bandana Project. So bringing this cabinet together just to have a cross-pollination of ideas, and now have Purdue and Michigan State and Michigan and Maryland and all these schools say, hey, that's a terrific program. And The Bandana Project is spreading like wildfire across college campuses, and as you can imagine, it's just a powerful symbol of trust. It's a powerful symbol of compassion.
What's your take on meds, on therapy? What's your take on continuing to have care beyond the immediacy of the issue?
Yeah, so I'm not a therapist and I'm not a clinical worker in any respects or a medical professional, but we've seen that, medication can help. We've seen that talk therapy can help. We've seen, as we've spoken about, that friendship can help, and having an ear to lean on having a shoulder to lean on can help. But in terms of medication, we have to be very careful because we know that a lot of these antidepressants for anxiety and depression, which are two of the biggest mental health illnesses that plague students during this age of 17 to 23, but really do keep rising. And one of the issues is that when you take these medications, they take 4 to 6 weeks to even start seeing signs. So imagine if you're a student athlete and a therapist comes to you and says, hey, I think it's time that you start taking an antidepressant. And you finally build up the courage to do that. That's not easy, by the way. It's not easy to say, I need help. So first they have to raise their hand. They come to the therapist. They have to open themselves up. And then they have to finally say, you know what? I'm going to take medicine. That's really, really tough. So let's just I salute people even to getting to that step. Then for 4 to 6 weeks, you're really living and dying on the word of the therapist. Like, I'm going to feel better in 5 to 6 weeks. And the therapist is doing everything that they can. They're not doing anything wrong. And then another thing to watch out for is sometimes people take the medication and they start feeling better. They do, but they gain 20 pounds. And then their knees hurt more. So they're physically not feeling as well. Or maybe they're not feeling as pretty or not feeling as handsome. And then that hurts their self-confidence. We're also seeing issues that I think are important of continuity of care. A lot of times people come in a crisis. A lot of people, you'll hear this term a lot, they have to hit rock bottom before they realize for themselves that they need help. But what happens 4 weeks later when they're on medicine, or if they're not on medicine, or if they're using talk therapy, or if they're using one of these resources and they're improving? Are we focused on them continued improving, or are we just trying to take them off the ledge? And I think it's really critical that we don't just take them off the ledge. Mental health, as you had mentioned several times in this exchange, is so critical at all levels. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Anywhere on that scale, it's important. Because even at 10, when you're at your best, you need to keep being at your best. We want you to remain at your peak. That requires help every day. That could be meditation, that could be mindfulness, that could be just, really, really focusing in. So continuity of care, medication, we need to be very, very careful, when we utilize these items. They are critical, but they're just pieces to the puzzle that make it a little bit more challenging.
Adam, when you started the mental health initiative, was it well received? I saw that so many different news outlets like ESPN covered it, and others. How was it received overall?
It was received terrifically. We were just not astonished by the support. We were just thrilled by the support. There were several major newspapers writing feature stories on the article and about the press release. Just the idea of really, again, gathering 31 mental health professionals in some capacity, whether they're in the administrative role or, student counseling or academic advisors, senior women administrators, faculty athletic representatives, psychiatrists, psychologists, social workers, all sorts of different people coming together to say, this is a major issue. This is not something we're going to close our eyes and pretend it doesn't exist. We are going to absolutely prioritize this. We now have monthly meetings. We have our next monthly meeting coming up on Thursday. We have another monthly meeting with the executive team of the mental health cabinet. There's a technology team subcommittee. There's an education subcommittee. There's a student athlete input subcommittee. There's a data research subcommittee. And we're being reached out to by all sorts of different mental health advocacy programs and initiatives and institutions to try and partner with more organizations. Because our goal, again, as you've mentioned many times, and as I really hold heart and true, sports, athletics is a platform. It is an arena to reach out to people in all aspects of life. It is not simply about who's winning on the scoreboard. That's critical to us. We love the TV ratings. We love watching our student athletes compete. But if we can literally make one person, literally, I'm not kidding with you, we always ask ourselves, what is the measure of success with this cabinet? If we can help one person feel a little bit better, the cabinet is worth it. And I mean that from the bottom of my heart. One person, just one person feeling a little bit better.
That's your Dayenu moment.
That's our Dayenu moment, and that's a great way of saying it, Noam. That is a Dayenu moment. I think sometimes we seek to change massive problems and we try to get huge numbers. This is not about me coming to you in 2 months and saying, hey, Noam, guess what? Look at the utilization rate on our app that we gave to Calm. Would I love it if I could tell you that of the 10,000 plus people that we gave and distributed this award-winning app to of Calm, that 90% are using it? Yeah, I would love that. That would mean a lot to me. But if I came back to you and told you that I got one email from one kid who told me, hey, Adam, I got on Calm. It's helped me do some breathing exercises in the morning. I've had a really rough year. My family life's been a mess. I got cut from the team. I'm benched. I'm trying out a different sport. I'm really struggling in school. Maybe my girlfriend dumped me. If that one kid can say he's doing a little bit better, every single thing we're doing is worth it.
That's really big stuff that you guys are doing, and it's again, it's not. Someone from the outside might look at that and say that's not focused on sports, but what you're saying is no, it's about so much more than that. Athletics are about so much more than that. I know that you are obsessed with sports. What's amazing to me is how you leverage sports to do something really good for the world. I assume you've been watching The Last Dance. That's my assumption.
Yes,
And
sir. It's been amazing.
and so I want to ask you, when you watch The Last Dance, which is a documentary about the last season that the Chicago Bulls won their sixth championship in 8 years, led by the greatest basketball player of all time, Michael Jordan. When you watch it, what do you think about in terms of leadership? What have you learned about it in terms of leadership?
So, firstly, I'll tell you that being a member of the Big Ten Conference, it's actually really cool when you get a calendar invite to watch The Last Dance. Like, that's part of your job. Now I'm not saying we haven't had meetings over that or we can't, but it's something that is expected to be watched just because it's such a terrific, piece in sports, and it's something that we should know. It also talks a lot about his college experiences, and he played a lot of the Big Ten teams, so there's a lot of history there with Michael Jordan, and just sports in general to see like one of the greatest of all time. So that was another just great realization that I've been really enjoying my job, working in sports. But in terms of leadership, what I love about Michael Jordan the most probably is his hustle. I think he's the kind of person that at all times is trying to be his best. And I think from a leadership perspective, I have found that to be just critical in sort of everything that you do, that you're really actually exerting yourself. And why I say that's important is I speak to a lot of kids that are trying to break into sports all the time, and they'll say, I really want to work in sports. I really only want to work for the New York Yankees, the New York Mets, the New York Islanders, the Giants, the Jets, and maybe I would work for the New England Patriots. And that's like not what Michael Jordan was about. Michael Jordan didn't care what the optics were. He didn't care what the position was. He was going to do his best in any given scenario. And we saw that throughout the documentary, especially in his earlier years when the team wasn't as good. Pre-Scottie Pippen, he was getting beaten up a lot. He still every day went out and did his best. We see that with the flu game. When he had the flu and he plays, he went out and did his best. When he tried to play baseball, he was really progressing. He was taking so many more batting practices than pretty much anyone else on the team. So when you look at that kind of attitude, I think that's really the only way I think we can really succeed at peak performance. Not to bring this exactly back to mental health, but it's true. You have to have a certain level of mental health to be able to do that. Too often people will reflect on mental health and say, oh, it's a time of disaster. Not always. If you're just at neutral, you can't do what Michael Jordan did. And for me, I was a legal intern for the Minnesota Vikings. I was staying in a $45 motel room, making $9 an hour, working God knows how many hours with no promise of anything in negative 10 degrees. My body is thin and frail. I was freezing every single day. And I did that for months on end with no promise of literally anything. Now, in the end, Kevin Warren, who was the chief operating officer of the Minnesota Vikings, we ended up with an incredibly close relationship. And through that, when he became the commissioner of the Big Ten Conference, I was appointed chief of staff, which was, a terrific step for me and for my career personally and professionally. But that doesn't happen unless you have a desire. Like, you have to have a hustle. So I'll ask people all the time, like, what is your staying in a motel eating lettuce every day? Like, what is that to you? Where are you showing that? That can't just be in ideal circumstances when we're working hard. And Michael Jordan showed that in spades.
Your story of going to motels, of, eating, by the way, because I've heard you tell me this story before, you also keep kosher and you ate lettuce. Like, you didn't eat big meals. You were willing to sacrifice something in order to achieve what you want to achieve. And that, to me, is a standard of leadership that I think every generation can learn a lot from.
You laugh, but it's true. Like, where is that drive? Where is that competitive spirit? Where is that fire that I'm going to be the best, that I'm going to sacrifice something because I think there's better on the other side? It's not easy to do things when we don't know what the result is. But when you look at life, we don't really know what the results are, and we can't really control the results. We can control our attitude. Viktor Frankl, the famed psychiatrist, said, I think, the last freedom in life is our attitude in any set of given circumstances. And it's true. Like, that is the only thing that we can basically control. And if you have that attitude and you really want something, I think Michael Jordan shows and demonstrates, a lot more, to your point, a lot more than what you would think sports would. It's not just about sports. I think when anyone who watches athletics, the feeling and, the pride, Sports is one of the last places now where you'll hear the national anthem. You don't hear the national anthem on a daily basis anywhere. But when you go to a baseball game, you take off your hat, you put your hand on your heart, and you feel solidarity to things. There are a lot of lessons that are being derived out of sports that I think people don't necessarily see for the naked eye, but that's what makes it such a privilege to be able to stand on the Big Ten and work with the Big Ten on really shining light on mental health and shining light on voter registration and financial literacy and cancer awareness and all sorts of different items that we can do because we have a platform and we have an audience.
It's all about being on a spectrum. It's not like there are people who have mental health issues and then everyone else. That is a way when we view it like that, that's totally stigmatizing mental health. All of us have different challenges, different things that we need to think about in order to get to be our most healthy selves, whatever that is.
No, and I've seen that and I feel that on a day-to-day basis. I totally agree with you. If you start grouping mental health as people that you think have diagnosable disorders and then just a routine person, I don't think that's fair to the population, and I think it's intellectually dishonest. I think we all are battling with different issues and different things surrounding our mental health, and problems of the mind are a lot harder than problems of the physical body. And I think we all know that from our own personal experiences, whether it's temporary grief from a family member passing away, or it's a full-on depression, or it's anxiety, or it's bipolar disorder. All of these items can be dealt with, can be helped, and there are a lot of people that do want to help, but we have to make it clear to people that they exist. I think sometimes we complain that there aren't enough resources, and I think sometimes to your question about what the community can do better, I think we need to do a better job of referring people to those resources and say, hey, listen, I think you would benefit from seeing a therapist. And I have had the privilege, and I mean that honestly, of saying that to a few friends on a few occasions, and I've had the privilege of hearing that from a few friends on a few occasions. And I think that's really critical that becomes part of our lexicon, part of our language, part of our vernacular, because if we can't speak openly about mental health and you can't come to me, Noam, and say, Adam, I see you're struggling, man, and you shouldn't have to grit your teeth. Where is there like a mitzvah in the Torah to grit your teeth? Where is there like a commandment or a thought that like it's beneficial to really just ride it out and struggle? That's not really part of the program. Now, you could do that a little bit to try and reach something, but I don't understand this notion of like, let's just grit our teeth. No, if you need medication, if you need someone to talk to, if you need a friend, if you need just space, if you need mindfulness, mental health is so idiosyncratic. You know that better than anybody with two parents that are in the field. We need to make sure that we have tailored solutions to different people, but there are a lot of solutions now, and we just have to keep opening people's eyes to them.
I want to go into a different topic, Judaism. Speak to me about that. What's it like to be Jewish in a leadership position in the Big Ten?
It's incredible, for the simple fact that Kevin Moore, my boss, the commissioner, is just so accommodating and thoughtful and accepting. He's often told me in personal conversations that he loves me, for my faith. That's something that he just really cherishes and identifies with. So that always means the world to me. But for me, I'm really paving my own way. There are very few Orthodox Jews in the sports world. I have a few mentors in the field. Steve Human is a mentor of mine, who I think you know from California, who's an NBA agent. And there just aren't that many people to talk to. So you really are carving your own way.
Who are the people that have inspired you to make the decisions that you have?
I think I'd probably start with my dad. My dad's been a really large influence in my life. He's someone that has always believed in me. There's a great story from North Carolina State University. Jim Valvano was the head coach there. He's famous now for the Jimmy V Foundation, which raises millions of dollars for cancer every single year. And Jim Valvano told his father, he said, one day my dream is to make it to the NCAA championship, and I'm going to win the NCAA championship, the basketball coach. And his father said, I'm going to be there. And he said, how do you know you're going to be there? Like, it might be on the road, you might be tired, you might have to talk to mom. And he's like, I'm going to be there when you win. A few years pass by, he still hasn't won anything at all the stops he's in. I think he was at Iona. And one day he's in his father's room and he sees a little bag in the corner, like a Messiah bag, like a Mashiach bag, if you've ever heard that term before. The people that say, like, I'm waiting for the Messiah to come, and here's this bag packed in the corner of my room. And he says, what is that? And Jim Valvano says, his father says, my bags are packed. Like, I'm on your team. I'm going to be there when you win the national championship. And Jim Valvano does win the national championship. His father is there. And I think the lesson is just so powerful, because the most powerful lesson that I think you learn from that is that he had someone who believed in him. He had someone who believed in him. And from day one, my father has been someone who has believed in me. And when you have someone whose bags are packed for you, even when you don't measure up, even when you screw up, even when you say something stupid, you're just not at your top moment. That's something that's pretty inspiring, and you just feel like you feel whole. You feel like you have a back. You feel like you have someone there. So, I feel like my dad has always had his bags packed for me. And In turn, I think it's really important that you pack your bag for other people. And one of the terms we use in the Big Ten is sending the elevator down. And the elevator doesn't mean that everybody's all the way up at the top and that, only the executive of executives can send down help. Every single person can help someone review a resume. Every person can lend an ear. You can be the lowest person in the organization, technically on paper, making the least amount of salary, and you can make a tremendous difference in someone's life every single day. And if you have that opportunity, why not take it? You got to pack your bags for people. You got to have people that pack your bags. You got to find those people in your life. And, for me, that was my dad.
I want to just go to like sort of rapid fire questions here for you.
Let's do it.
When you hear these words, tell me what you think. Tell me what they mean to you. Resiliency.
Just the ability to really push through tough times. That you're going to be on the floor. Everybody's going to be on the floor, right? There's a famous, I don't know if it's Talmudic or biblical saying like Sheva yipol tzadik v'kam, right? You fall 7 times, but the righteous person gets up. And I think it's through the getting up that actually makes that person righteous. It's important. It's crucial that you realize that you're going to be on the floor. There's going to be a lot of people saying no to you. I have had so many people say no to me in my life. And I think sometimes you look at the end and you say, oh, like I'm working for the Big Ten. This is really exciting. This is really cool. I cannot tell you, I mean this, Noam, from the bottom of my heart, how many people have said no to me. One of the stories that I like to tell people is that I have found in my experiences that a lot of executives will not meet with you if you try to pin them down on one day. So if you say I'm coming in November 6th, they'll be like, sorry, I'm busy that day. So what I started realizing is that if I said that I was there for the entire month of November, I was just like hanging out in November, they'd be more likely to give me a date, and they would always give me a date. The problem is that now they think that you're living there, so when they cancel on you, they don't think that it's a big deal. They're canceling on you last second. I have been on planes where I've been canceled on and literally stayed in the airport and flown back straight to New York because the meeting was canceled. Hey, sorry, something came up this day. Flown straight back to New York. That is, for me, that is being told no. That's no. And then getting back on that calendar, and then the second time, and then maybe that day they'll say, hey, come in this morning. You're on the calendar. You can come. And I'm like, yep, I'm here. But I wasn't staying there for a full month.
That to me sounds like such an important thing. For all of us, for all of us just want to hear yes. We want to just, hearing no is so hard. But your point is so astute about like, you got to hear the no's in order to get to the yes. And you can't just have that shortcut in life. It doesn't work like that. What about the word Shabbat?
Shabbat has never become more critical for me. Rest, debriefing, turning technology off. And that's something, as we've mentioned, I have to explain to every single constituent that I'm talking to. And it's not a bad thing. I'm happy to do it, but this is not, I'm not living in Baltimore under the Eruv. The ability to really turn off, I've never had that experience before. And, to have people respect that, I'll literally be on meetings. And to give you an idea of how big of a mensch Commissioner Warren is, he will literally stop at, like, let's say Shabbat comes in at 7:30. He'll stop at 7 and say, Adam needs to go prepare for the Shabbat. I like him to have 30 minutes before to get his mind straight. I don't want him to just rush into it. And when you model that type of leadership, and then people send me messages after the Shabbat, like, hey, hope your Shabbat was great. Hey, hope your Passover was great. And I've had to miss out on some important phone calls sometimes. I've had to miss out on some important, crucial meetings. And every single time I've had people reach out to me and say, hey, hope your Sabbath was well. Hope your Shabbat was well. It's never been more important in my life. I mean that honestly. It has never been more important. I get to debrief. I get to talk to friends and family. I get to spend time with my parents. I get to read a book. I get to just not be on something technologically based. And it's critical. It's critical to my faith. It's critical to just my mental health. It's critical to just me being a person and being able to be refreshed for a full week, which it always seems to be.
Adam, it was so awesome having you on the show. I learned so much from you. I've been friends with you for a long time. And to learn from you in this way, to learn about all of the wisdom that you shared with me, because you really are a game changer. You've helped so many people, maybe that you've met, maybe that you haven't met, who are able to feel much more comfortable with themselves and to feel more self-confident. And to that, I say thank you. And to that, I say you really are a game changer. So you're the man.
Thanks, Tom.
Thank you so much for joining the show. Thank you so much to everyone for joining the show. And you could follow us on YouTube and on Instagram and on Twitter. You see it in the screen right there. And have a great day.